Thanks, Keith, for your kind words. And it's Auld House Community Church in Glasgow. I'm not going to say anything about myself, if you don't mind, because I just want to use these 10 minutes just to share a little reflection with everyone, particularly as we've moved into Advent. John led us in some songs this morning, focusing on the theme of Advent. So I would just want to keep that going. I have got a few slides that I want to share with you as well. Um, I remember back in 1990, seems a long time ago now, but in 1990, Billy Graham came to Scotland. And I had the privilege of hearing him both in Edinburgh. I was a youth worker in those days in Edinburgh. And also, he came to Glasgow, and I came through to Glasgow and brought a bunch of friends through to hear him in Glasgow. And I can't remember whether it was Edinburgh or Glasgow, one of the two places, he told this story of the ant hill. Some of you may have heard this story, I don't know, but it stuck with me. I can't remember anything else that Billy Graham said, apart from just as I am and inviting people to come forward at the end. But I remember the story of the ant hill. And in this story, Billy Graham talks about when he was a little boy, he used to love going fishing with his dad in a lake somewhere in North Carolina. And fishing was a pastime, a hobby, quite rural part of America. But this one time after they fished, they got out of their boat and they were walking back home across the fields. And he stood on what he thought was a piece of dirt. But when he looked down, to his horror, it wasn't a piece of dirt, it was an anthill. And he trodden on this anthill and demolished the anthill. And of course, lifted his foot up immediately and looked at the chaos that he'd created. The anthill was destroyed. All the ants were coming out. Some of them were crushed by his boot. So they were former ants. And the rest were trying frantically to deal with the chaos. Their little world had been destroyed. So he says to his dad, Dad, what can we do to help them? He said, we can't help them, Billy. He said, Dad, but we got to do something. He said, I feel responsible. He said, we can't do anything. He said, Billy, the only thing we could do is become an ant. If we could become like them, then maybe we could get alongside them and help them. And I always remember that story, and it reminds me about Advent. And I want to just read a couple of these passages. We've already read one, so I'm not going to read that one again. But I want to take us into a couple of these passages in Isaiah today, because these are wonderful passages. Sorry, there you can see it now. The first one is very familiar to us, and that's the one in Isaiah 7, where it says, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman, or in Matthew's gospel, it's translated as virgin, will conceive a child and will give birth to a son, and you will call him Emmanuel. And that reminds us of the wonder of the incarnation. It reminds us that at the heart of this time of year is God coming to be with us. And that's a statement. We all know that statement. You know, we read these verses every year, but we need to just pause and ponder again how significant it is. I don't know if you realize, but that sets our faith apart from every other faith that people espouse to in this world. That God actually took on our form. He entered the womb of a little, probably teenage girl in Palestine, in the year 5 BC, and 9 months later, he was born into the world, like you and I came into the world. And he took on our humanity so that he could be with us. He could take our humanity into himself and live the life that we don't live and can't live, and offer that perfect life up to God in our place and redeem us. It's an amazing theological truth that we will never, ever, ever ponder the full depths of it. God came to be with us and be like us. We've already read these words together that John put up on the screen. Again, very familiar words from the book of Isaiah. But I just want to focus on these last four phrases at the end. And also the phrase that John didn't put up from verse 2. The context for Isaiah 9 is the idea of God shining a light in the darkness. Verse 2 said, the people who walk in darkness will see a great light. And it's this idea of God shining his light upon us, not just coming to be with us and be like us, but shining a light upon us, a light in our path. In John chapter 1, it says, the light shines in the darkness cannot comprehend it or overcome it. But what does that mean for us? I think it means these four things. It means he came to guide us. He came to give us wisdom as a counselor, and a wonderful counselor at that cause. We need guidance. We need direction. We need wisdom. We are lost, and we need that. And he came to give us that as our counselor. He came to give us strength and power. Doesn't just say he came to be our God, he came to be our mighty God. Okay, there is connotation of strength and power when we are weak, and how we need that. We don't have the power we need to live this life. We don't have the strength to face each day. He came to give us that as mighty God. He came to be our everlasting Abba. He came to give us security, the security of knowing God as our Abba, that we can look into the face of God, as it were, look into the heart of God and call him Abba, just as Jesus did, for all eternity. And the security and the love that that brings us, which no one, nothing in heaven, on earth, or hell itself, Paul says in Romans, will ever be able to separate us from the amazing love of Abba God. And fourthly, he came to be our Prince of Peace. He came to bring shalom. And goodness knows we're not going to be able to unpack that. Okay, never mind in a couple of minutes. Healing, wholeness, well-being, security, everything that's involved in that. He came to bring that to us and shine the light. But thirdly, there's another passage at the beginning of Isaiah that we don't read at Advent, and I think we should, because it talks about a little child as well. But we don't often read this one. And I love this one because it talks about the kingdom that's come. It says, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse. From his roots, a branch will bear fruit. Oh, sorry. Oh, gone ahead of myself. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him. And it's this phrase that struck me as I thought about today. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes or decide what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge for the needy. With justice, he will give decisions to the poor of the earth, and a little child will lead them. This idea of justice, of God bringing justice to our world, of God bringing righteousness, helping us to live right, for the needy especially. That is at the heart of the incarnation. That is at the heart of this month that we've entered into. As I don't know how you reach out to others, whether it's through food banks like we do, or special projects that you put together for your community. But as we do those projects, whatever they look like, it's bringing the kingdom to others. And I want to finish with this today. Leave this with us. Incarnation, literally the infleshing of God. What does that mean for us? It means he came to be one of us. He came to guide us and shine a light so that we could follow him and know his ways. And he came to change us and change our world. But what does it mean for us to be like him? What does it mean, as it were, for us to incarnate? If that's not a theological heresy, Rupert, but you can correct me if it is. What does it mean for us to incarnate God in our lives? For God to come into our flesh and live through us? I think it means three things. And I want to leave these three words with you today. And maybe you'll pick these up in the discussion time in the breakout rooms. Maybe you'll just take them with you as you leave them. I've been thinking about these this week as I've been preparing for this. Number one, be present. Be present. The incarnation means God was present with us. And the incarnation for us means we got to be present in people's lives. However we do that, be present. Secondly, be different. Don't mean be weird. Maybe they'll think we're weird, and maybe it will be a bit weird sometimes, but be different. As we are present in our community, as we're present in people's lives, as we live out the life of the kingdom in justice, We will be different. We will stand out as we shine that light and take the bushel off and let it shine, as we try to be different and show a different way of living to people. Then do that. Be prepared to be different, and have those conversations. And when they come, finally, be ready. Be ready for those God moments. I believe God wants to give us some God moments in Advent. That could be a conversation. It could be something that totally shocks you and surprises you. It could be somebody who shows up at your church, or that you bump into the street, or someone that you've not heard of who gets in contact with you. It could be something that you're doing and you don't really know why you're doing it. You've got a hunch that you should do this. You don't know what it's going to lead to. And God shows up in an amazing way. Be ready. Be ready for God to intervene, and He will, just like He did in the incarnation. I want to finish with this and then hand back to Keith. My favorite Christmas carol is O Little Town of Bethlehem. I love, 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 love this Christmas carol. I was really hoping that John Garriman would sing it today, but hey ho, maybe some other time. But I want you to fill in the name of your community, your town, whether that's Glasgow, Linlithgow, or you want to be more specific, Possil, okay? Pollokshaws, whatever your community is, put your community in the gap, in the blank, underlined. O little town of whatever your community is, how still we see thee lie. Above thy deep and dreamless sleep, the silent stars go by. Maybe at times it just feels that one day goes into another, goes into an evening, goes into a day. Maybe you feel, are we making any difference? Are we just going through the day by day? Yet in thy dark street shineth the everlasting light. The light of Jesus is shining in Possil. The light of Jesus is shining on the streets of Linlithgow. The light of Jesus is shining in Falkirk. I know you know that. The light of Jesus is shining in our wherever you are today. It's there, and it'll shine through you. And this is what my prayer is for this Advent, that the hopes and the fears of my community, the hopes and fears of your community will be met in us as embodiments of what God is doing this season. I really pray that you will have lots of God moments in the next 4 weeks and have lots to celebrate during Advent. God bless.